And welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, and tonight I am joined with a unique guest who is brand new to the series and this show, so I am so excited to bring her on. And I am going to stop blubbering now because I'm in such awe to have her on. And I'm going to turn it over and allow her to introduce herself. So I bring you the one, the only incredible, amazing Desta Barnabe.
Hi, Michael. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for coming on. And for those who may not be familiar with your work, could you give a brief background to what you do?
Absolutely. Hard to give a brief one, but I guess, I've been involved in the UFO community directly because I work with Grant Cameron, who's a Canadian ufologist here, for about 10 years. And, but far beyond that, from when I was a child, I guess I was involved in the paranormal community. So my grandmother was a medium, her house was haunted. I was doing tea leaves and palmistry and astrology and stuff from when I was a kid, and I've always been interested in all paranormal things and supernatural topics for my whole entire life. And I do tons of different healing modalities and QHHT, and I started channeling in about 2015 and wrote a couple books that are direct messages on channeling. I just published a book a couple days ago, maybe not even a week ago, called Unlocking Psychic Potential. That's about how to channel, how to remote view, how to get into the center basically of all these different modalities, and connect with that place inside of yourself where I think that all of these different abilities come from, instead of how a lot of people think, including myself, because I've taken, maybe 100 courses in my whole life and all these kind of things like healing or Reiki or shiatsu and Thai massage and crystal healing and essential oils, and chakras, and I mean everything, body talk, and I've taken so many courses that I think that what I really learned and picked up along the way, that's the focus of this new book, is that I don't believe that there is separate protocols that are really necessary to be able to do things like dowsing or remote viewing or channeling or a lot of these things, psychometry or automatic writing or any of these things. I think it's really just learning how to meditate and getting in that one special place. I'm calling it the special place in this new book because I think it's really a frame of mind and a trance-like state that if you can get into that state, you're able to do all of these different things. Every different ability, psychic ability, I think is like kind of unlocked in that one special place. So I mean, I could make the much longer, but that's the summary, I guess, of the things that I'm interested in and I've been talking about for the last few years.
Wow, I'm sitting here thinking, what don't you do?
There's always something. I love learning, and I really love learning. So I still really consider myself like a researcher because there's always something. If I see a YouTube video or hear on an interview someone else talking about something that I've never heard of, a modality or some kind of topic that I've never heard of, I will buy 10 books on it and read the 10 books just because I like being not necessarily an expert in the field, but I like feeling like I have a good grasp on a lot of different things in this, under this like paranormal or supernatural or UFO field. Basically, I think about the nature of reality and what it really means for us in this realm. Like what this is as in like a simulation, or is it a holographic universe, all those kind of things, like the actual nature of what we're living in all the time. And um and i I explore those kind of concepts all the time, and they're directly linked, I think, into the healing modalities and all the psychic abilities, because I think that you have to kind of figure out if there's multiple realities going on, or if it's parallel realities, or a simulation or something. You have to wonder how these things work. How, even if you're doing something like Reiki long distance healing, how does that work? How do all these different things work? And I think there has to be a common pattern between all of them, because I think it has to do with what exactly this framework that we're living in is. And I think that kind of helps explain it. But I don't think that, obviously, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. And I think it's going to take a long time for humanity in general to figure out what exactly is going on. But it's fascinating. And I think it's all tied in together. All those different things are tied into like what is really happening out there. How do these unexplained supernatural things occur, and why do they occur, and what makes them occur, and like who are the beings outside of there, and what are they doing, and what's their agenda and everything. So it's really interesting, I think.
That is, and I love how you're tying that together, because as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, I don't think I've ever thought about that in that way either. And I have to admit too is I'm curious, because there is something in your bio that just the name alone has me curious. And so I want to take a moment and bring awareness to that, because I feel like it's going along with what we're talking about. And that is Mysteria Luna.
Oh, that's a new. Well, it's my normal day job is I only work half of the year. My fiance and I own a landscaping, a pond building, like a waterfall and pond building business, and so we only work for the spring, and like spring to fall. So we're closed all winter. So 2 winters ago, we didn't know what to do for the winter, and so we decided to make I don't even know what started it really. I guess that I was just really looking on Amazon. I'm Canadian, and even just a couple of years ago, if you were to look for like Bigfoot t-shirt, or like something, whatever, some kind of cryptid hat or something on Amazon, well, you would never in a million years find it. They had literally nothing at all like that. And my fiance is an artist, and he does all the book covers for all the books that I publish. And so he was saying, like, maybe we should make some paranormal stuff. Why don't we start making Bigfoot and Skinwalker Ranch stuff, and alien stuff and everything. And so I guess I don't know how we came upon Etsy, but we somehow figured out Etsy, and then made a store out of it, made a ton of shirts and hoodies and stickers and patches and mugs and everything, basically. And we were going to start a podcast, but then it gets back into the spring, and then we're at work, and we work a lot of 6 days a week for the whole summer, because we only work in the summer. And then we just get so busy we can't do it. So then the next year was last year, and we had a lot of renovations and stuff to do. But we started saying, well, maybe we should do something else. And instead of starting the podcast, we started a YouTube channel. So there's a YouTube channel, and it's also our website and our store name called Mysteria Luna. And we tie in really short, like 10 to 20 minute like scripts about different things. We highlight a lot of our favorite authors' books or whatever, like George Hansen and The Trickster and the Paranormal, and The PK Man, Jeffrey Mishlove and Grant Cameron's breakthrough book. So we will focus on one of the books, and we do a lot of AI generated images and like really short videos, and we have a script. And so it's we're just trying to get some of these really crazy, bizarre AI generated images of these crazy, demons and angels and everything, anything paranormal, like Bigfoots and cryptids, and like anything we can think of. And yeah, so we're doing quite a few, we've done quite a few of them now. And it's really fun. It's a good creative outlet because it's like a short story, creating a short story. My husband does the music as well, like creepy music in the background. And then we make the script and we have, a generated voice say the script. And then we edit in a whole bunch of these really crazy AI generated images. So it's kind of like a little really short documentary if we had the ability to do anything bigger, but just for like little 10-minute videos, it's really fun. That's what we're doing this winter.
That does sound fun, and I think they even started calling those shock docs, I think, here in America.
Yeah, we were hoping to be able to do like a documentary style one. I broke my leg a couple months ago, so our whole winter has been totally uprooted and is nothing except for I walk from the bedroom to the office here and that's it. We were going to be going, we had a few topics in mind and people that we were going to go interview and try doing short documentaries with over this winter, but yeah, that didn't happen. So then we ended up like being able to get a couple of these AI programs that could like really make crazy stuff. You have to input, the proper prompts and go through like a lot of them, generate a lot of them, but there's some that are pretty crazy. So we're like, oh my God, can you imagine if we could do this? And we somehow got it together and, we've got a little template of how we do them now. And yeah, it's really fun.
Very cool. And I gotta ask, because I do a show with a friend in the UK. Being that you're from Canada, how is the UFO community in Canada? Are they like here in America where you either have proof, you don't, you either have something to prove your experience or you don't, keeping it
Oh,
secret, or is it more open and more readily talked about in Canada?
I don't know if there would be. I mean, we do a lot of conferences in the States. We have for the whole time I've known Grant. We go like not in the last couple of years, of course, since 2020 when everything, shut down. We didn't do anything for a couple of years. But before that, we did quite a few of the biggest UFO conferences. We went to all of them. Grant was usually speaking. I helped run some of the conferences. And yeah, we went to quite a few of them. So most of the community that we know, I think, is generally Americans. Of course, there's a lot of Canadians. There used to be one conference, UFO conference a year that was in Toronto here, and but I don't know if it's any different at all. I don't know if it would. I can't even say that it would be more open. I mean, there's different like sects of the UFO community. I'm sure or anyone who's listening to this who's involved in that knows that there is like parts of it that are hardcore nuts and bolts people who don't want to hear about anything except for anti-gravity and how the craft works and back engineering stuff and like the government and what they know in disclosure. And there's parts of it that are experiencers who have had certain experiences and they don't know really what to do with the information. Most of them have never been in a community that they were open to be able to talk about it. So they don't really know other people. They were usually, shunned basically by their family or told that they were crazy or that these things were demonic or something if they were from a religious background. So a lot of these people don't know anyone and never had close friends or family that were basically on their side. So it's not until the internet came around and chat groups and stuff where they could actually, connect with other people and started going like, they never knew that there was other people that were having these same experiences. And then there's like the consciousness or like the new age kind of people. Actually, I guess there's kind of the paranormal people too. The paranormal people didn't really like the UFO people, even just a couple of years ago, like people that saw spirit and all these physical mediums and that paranormal community, the ghost hunter community, didn't believe in UFOs. And a lot of the UFO people didn't believe in ghosts. And it was pretty crazy. Like just a couple of years ago, that was still going on. And then there's like the consciousness crowd, which is like kind of, like some of the psychonauts and the people that are like looking into the nature of reality and kind of just like having one big umbrella that is around all the paranormal UFO cryptid community or whatever. So it's quite split up, I think. So it's in Canada it would be the same thing. It would be like it depends what group you're in basically, and because there's not a lot of people that are really the far out, consciousness explorers looking into trying to tie everything into. That's more my vibe, I guess. That's like what I'm trying to do, is tie everything together from like the bigger, broader outlook of just like what is happening, the nature of the reality of our reality, compared to all these other things. But a lot of other people, they're in really rigid little boxes, and each person is, just only the last year or two starting to go, oh, like there's connections between each of these communities. So I don't think there's any difference between Canada or the States. I don't think in that way. It's just everyone's in their own little box, and we just need to like open up everyone's boxes and try and, compare notes for everything, I think, because I think it's all the same thing, and that's what we're all trying to figure out, like what's really going on out there.
I agree, and thank you for sharing that. And that brings up an interesting point that I've been thinking about and was hoping to ask you, and I was trying to figure out the right way to ask the question. And that is, with all the healing modalities that you've studied, Reiki, quantum healing, hypnosis technique, and others, do you feel like your background and possible experiences with UFOs has impacted which healing modalities you're drawn to and use? Or do you feel like they're two separate things and you're trying to figure out how to make them connect?
That's really a tough question. I think that I, it's a tough question. I never really thought about it actually, so I'm trying to think of it. So like I started doing a lot of my healing stuff when I was 18. When I was 18 is the first time I took a course. That was my like Reiki level 1 course. And I've taken a ton of things since then, and I've seen UFOs at different times throughout my whole life, pretty consistently since I was a kid. But when I was really young, like 18, or like when I was younger, the things I would see would be like lights in the sky moving around. And that's really hard to be able to, say that that's a UFO. We would say, oh my God, it's a UFO because it's going this way and then this way, and planes can't do that. But like in the 80s or the 90s, no one really knew that much about that kind of stuff. And there was no internet. So you'd only have a couple of UFO books, and that there wasn't enough information. And I was a lot younger. So I don't know that. So I was just taking whatever healing modality in those days that I thought would make a difference for my own life. I got in a car accident when I was 18 and had a lot of back problems. So I was always just trying to take something to practice it on myself to bring myself relief, and then hoped that at one time in the future I would take enough classes that I'd be able to open some kind of practice, where I would have a whole bunch of different things that I would be offering. But I had a really close encounter UFO experience in 2012, and like a really close one. And after that, I did start being able to do a bunch more things. But I also think, yeah, so maybe I never really thought about it, but I had a bunch of weird things happen 2012, 2013, 2014. And then I started channeling, and I kind of feel like channeling is the best, or I guess maybe I've realized since then about this thing where I think that there's only one real way to do all these things, because without taking courses but knowing how to channel, and I taught myself how to channel, I didn't know how to do that. I have been able to prove to myself, I don't need to prove it to anyone else, but to myself, that I can do all these other things, psychometry and remote viewing and all these other things. And that all came from channeling, and that came from, I think, my 2012 UFO experience. So maybe that led me into all these other things. I'm actually not sure if it did, because I've always been on like the quest to be able to figure things out more. So I'm not really sure, but I do think that I'm at a point now. I'm also 52, so I mean, I'm at a point where I've been taking this stuff since I was 18, so it's been, quite a journey already. But I do think that that 2012 experience definitely spurred on something, or at least I just felt like I could get answers to really crazy questions that I would never normally get. Because, through channeling, it's not like it's just a healing modality where you're just being able to do something. You're getting actual statements, like information, like, answers to questions. So, and you can't do that with anything else really. Dowsing a little bit, and I've been dowsing since I was a kid. So yeah, I would say that the 2012, my UFO experience definitely maybe like shaped me or like led me onto a different path. And that's where, obviously where I ended up right now. And yeah, but it's hard to say because I was doing it from way before that one experience.
Sounds like it kind of, from the way I was hearing it, and you can agree or maybe clarify, but it seemed to me like you were looking for answers since 18, but when that 2012 experience happened, your mind like woke up, and I don't mean woke in the sense that it's used today. I mean like
Hmm.
awakened a part of you,
Yeah,
and you all of a suddenly your thinking style changed, and you're like, oh, and new modalities and new experiences popped in, and so it's like there was a shift.
absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, funny you say that because the name that I got from that experience is the name under part of my website, which is called Feel the Shift, which is what I feel that actually happened during that experience. Is definitely the one big thing I can say about that is I became obsessed after that, like for sure. So I wouldn't say I was obsessed with paranormal and um, any of this like psychic or UFO stuff or whatever before. I wasn't obsessed with it, but I mean, I would watch every horror movie, any new book that came out on any of these topics I would buy, and I would take all the courses. So, but I would not say I was obsessed. I was just super interested. That's just the way, I've been. But after 2012, after that experience, it was I was like obsessed because I was like obsessed with trying to figure out what the hell happened and how it could have happened. And even though I believed in UFOs and everything before, and I had seen them before, it was nothing like this time. So this time, really, it was like something. This is like there's no other thing that's more important than this. It doesn't matter what it is. Like now, I can't shake it, and it's not just like a pastime. It's like a main mode of where my life has to be going from now on because it's yeah, so because I'm obsessed. I guess I never thought about saying it like that either before, but that was the difference. Is I was always interested. I never stopped being interested, but that experience was like, yeah, that was a big change. That was a big shift. Definitely.
So I'm kind of curious, and I don't know if you go into this realm, but my mind is sitting there twirling the idea of, through quantum levels, could the accident have been your first step, and going in all these little steps to prepare you for what happened in 2012, so that when it happened, you would make the leaps that you do, and you wouldn't question, and you wouldn't be like, oh no, this isn't this, and I've read books and it's all this, and kind of try and push it
The
away.
accident, like the accident I just had, or you mean the experience of the 2012?
The accident when you were young that got you started in the healing
Oh,
modalities.
I see. Oh, damn. So, okay, so
And
say it again. So could that have been the thing that propelled me towards doing all these things?
so my thought is, because of your accident, you sought healing modalities that you maybe normally wouldn't have. So your mind was starting to open up to different possibilities, different opportunities. So then when 2012 happened, you had all these instances leading up to. So when this happened, you're like, okay, I'm ready for this now. Let's go here instead of
Yeah,
going,
yeah.
no, this is all kind of like this, and this is just
Absolutely, yeah.
another step.
Absolutely. I again never thought about that either because I did, even when I was young, like I said, my grandma, was a medium and had a lot of crazy things happening at her house. So, and she saw UFOs as well. I saw them at the lake with her as well when I was really young, like when I was 6 or 7 or whatever. So, I definitely think that the accident wasn't the first time I knew about any of that stuff, but I never really thought about that. But this accident as well that I just had a couple months ago is a different thing. So now I really seem to get it. Maybe that's why, because it was twice now that these accidents. Yeah, absolutely. I got a message once, and maybe that sums these things up, is that there's like big parts of your life, like big turning points. The message kind of said something like turning point. So it was just like big cogs in a wheel. So it's just like your normal life is going around, going around. And, there's like different things like, oh, I got fired. I broke up with this person, this person, whatever, is sick, or, I got kicked out of school, or like, whatever. There's like little blips in the road, but there's big, big things once in a while, big cogs. And those are big things that turn and change your life and actually move you up, like a big notch, a big, like, notch in energy, notch in awareness, notch in, spirituality, whatever you want to say. And I think that that was one of them. So that accident, absolutely, like you're saying, was probably something that at least put me on some kind of path to maybe, even though again I was like interested in stuff like that, I might not have gotten into the healing modalities if it wasn't for that accident, because I was in pain for so long, and didn't really have the money to be spending on treatment myself. So I just always thought might as well take the course instead of go to the person giving the course, because you only go there, 5 or 10 times, and you might as well just take the course for the same price. So I think that, yeah, definitely. I think that was one of the big like cogs in the wheel that changed everything, as well as my accident just a couple months ago, breaking my leg, was another one of those big things where pain does a lot to you. And I really remember that now. But same with my accident when I was young, I broke my coccyx and wrecked a bunch of like I compressed my spine so much in this accident that I got in, that I herniated a bunch of the discs in my back and got whiplash and all this stuff. So I had a nerve damage in my leg, and I had all this stuff. So I was in a lot of pain for a long time. And that really changes how you do things and changes your awareness of like how you look through your eyes and see life, basically. So now even this is like, you're normally so focused. I was so focused on like getting things done every day. Like I got to wake up and I just have lists of stuff to do every day, right? I got to do this, this, this. And now with this break of my leg, I was in bed for 3 months. And so it definitely changes that. There's no list. Like the list now is like, make it to the bathroom and make sure you have a shower every day or two. And that's it. Like there was no other list. So it's really not just putting priorities back in, but it's also like going back inside and doing things like meditation or investigating things. So in this 3 month time span, I published that one book, but I have 4 other books, 4 other half done books that I've done in these 3 months. So I guess it's like really figuring out what your, like I was just saying, what your own priorities are, and putting the time and effort into things that you wouldn't normally get a chance to do because you're so busy with like, regular life or whatever. And the amount of pain, one of the books that I'm putting out is like a book about pain relief through the ages, like what the Egyptians used to do for pain, and what the like magicians, the mystics and the magicians of like the 1800s did for pain, and what, like, throughout history, all these natural things that different cultures or groups or religions or whatever throughout, our entire history, what everyone else did for pain. Because that's all I could think about. The first month that I was in bed, I was in so much pain. That's all I could think about. So I just started writing a book and writing down all the crazy things that I was doing to see what was going to help me. So yeah, so I think definitely those two big things, like big accidents like that, are definitely things that like make your brain go, okay, like what is something that is more important than just getting your daily activities done, and what can you do to progress yourself. I always think of how can you like get something out of this downtime. So I just figured these books are like the perfect thing, because I publish books already, so it's easy for me to write and to publish a book. But I never would have put out 4 books in a season. Basically, in a million years I would never have had time for that. But it really like made me break down things that I was really interested in, figuring out what other people might be interested in, and then narrowing it down to like creating an outline and actually being able to start writing a book on it. So it definitely changed what I was supposed to be doing, and so did that one when I was a kid. So yeah, absolutely. Good question though, because I haven't really played that part into the big game, but absolutely that was a big part of everything. That could have been everything. Yeah, for sure.
Well, that actually led me up to possibly another great question for you. And that it's something that I've recently been thinking about, with similar, as I mentioned to you, having a leg injury.
Mhm.
And my question is kind of a two-part question. First part is, from your first accident when you were young and the healing modalities that you learned to help you there, which one do you think helped you the most? And knowing what you know today, is there a modality that you would have used different back then to help you? And the second part of the question is, do you want me to give it to you now or wait till you're done
No,
with the
I'll
first part?
I'll answer the first part before I forget. It's funny because I tell people that QHHT and dowsing are my two go-to. So I also offer Reiki and long distance Reiki. I've been doing it since I was 18, and I'm a teacher, and and uh, and I really believe in Reiki. But when it comes to depending on what the injury, I guess, is, but it really comes down to, for me, that QHHT is so good, because I think the part when like the practitioner gets to talk to the person's subconscious or higher self, that's part of the second part of a QHHT session. The first part is like the past lives. You spend half of the time, people are usually down for 2 hours. You spend the first hour going through past lives, just as really just a novelty, just to like kind of like figure some life lessons, and like answer any questions, even subconscious questions a person might have as to why certain things are happening, questions that they don't even know that they would have. But the second part of QHHT is the most important part, in my opinion, and that is when you talk to the person's higher self, or Dolores Cannon would say subconscious. So when you do that, like I ask the person, the client, to give me a list, like a full page of questions any question that you can think of, right? I don't know if your listeners know much about QHHT, but you're supposed to get from the client a bunch of questions. And I always ask for one piece of paper filled with questions. Maybe we won't get to all of them, but most of the time you get to most of them. And of course, those questions could be anything from, why do I have such bad luck? Why did my dad die when I was a kid? Why did I get in a horrible car accident when I was a kid? Why do I always have pain? Why do I always choose the wrong guy? Why don't I have any money? Why doesn't matter. Why do I have a reoccurring dream that I am on a spaceship my whole life? Why it doesn't matter. Any question that you don't know the answer to, any question at all. And you get a list of those. And when you get to talk to the person's subconscious and ask those questions, that is the part of the session that the people end up crying, like 99.9% of the time. I don't think I've ever had anyone who hadn't cried at that point during a session. That is the part, because being able to answer yourself. So these people are talking to you, right? You have like an audio recorder, you're recording them. So I'm asking them the questions that they gave me on the paper, but they're obviously the ones, under hypnosis responding. But when those people play back, or assuming that they have a memory of what they answered, them getting that information, that knowledge from themselves is priceless. So you could say that, I went to a psychic and the psychic told me that I was the, whatever, the Egyptian priestess in my last life. Well, in my opinion, obviously I believe in psychic abilities, but I've had a lot of people tell me a lot of things. I take those with about 25%. I believe those about 25%. Like, I don't really believe, because there's no proof. It's just them saying anything. Even if I think they're really good, I'm so insanely skeptical. I just don't believe that, really. But if I get hypnotized and you're asking me a question and I'm responding, and then when I wake up, I really can feel that connection still, and I'm still super emotional about it, and I'm the one that said it, well, then it's not like you're just, making up something to tell me because I'm paying you to tell me something and to tell me a good story. If I'm saying it to myself, I'm never going to forget that. And you don't just hear yourself say it, you remember the feeling of, and all the different, the storyline, the whole entire story comes back to you. So that is hard to beat. And that is why I wanted to learn the channeling, because I think channeling is the same, where I can ask a question and get information back. There's nothing better than that. And so for QHHT, for people who have, a lot of people are terminal. Most of the people that I was regressing for quite a while had terminal cancer, and it's like, it was their last stop. They don't know what else to do. They're terminal, so the doctor can't help them. No one can help them, so they're just trying to get any kind of answers. And QHHT, I find, is the most important one. But also the quickest one, if you're just trying to get answers, I would say, is dowsing, health dowsing with charts, dowsing with charts. Those are my two favorite go-to healing modalities. But the go-to thing that I do, if I like have cramps or like have like some small problem on a daily basis, I instantly do Reiki still, which is pretty crazy because that was the very first thing I learned when I was 18. But it really works. Like just doing Reiki on yourself really, 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 really for sure absolutely works. And so even when I hurt my back when I was 18, I was Reikiing myself all the time. The very first thing, when I was lying outside screaming my head off when I broke my leg here, Reiki is my go-to instant thing. I can't go and get a dowsing rod and get my charts and like be doing that when I'm out there. So it really depends on what the injury is and like what you can jump to. But I was meditating and trying to channel, and that's the same thing as the QHHT. When you're talking to the higher self, that's how I learned to channel. That was my very next thing. As soon as I was like off all the crazy drugs from the hospital and I could like lie down in bed and not be in pain for half an hour, I was trying to say why did this happen and what am I supposed to do to help to heal myself. So I would say Reiki is such a good instant, something that anyone can do to themselves right away. But the getting into your own higher self, or however you want to call it, and being able to get those answers, like, I mean, that to me is the most, not just rewarding, but it's the most interesting, and it blows my mind every time I do it, because the answers that I get back are things that I've never heard about. And so for my own self, it proves to me over and over and over again that I couldn't have somehow heard it on a TV show in the background and then just said these weird things, because it's things that I've never heard about, I don't know about, and a lot of things I have to look up on Google because I don't even know, what these concepts are or whatever. So yeah, so I think it depends on what the injury is, but yeah, Reiki is such a good go-to. A good, easy go-to, good, easy, cheap to learn, easy go-to. But that would be the first thing that I do if anything's had a headache, or if the dog comes home and his eye is weeping or something after the dog park or something. It's just like, Reiki is my very first, easiest go-to for sure still.
Okay, very cool. And thank you for that. And the second part is a little tricky to word, but I know from personal experience, the first time have a major trauma accident, your mind and body reacts one way. Then the second time I'm curious, was the reaction the same, or did you notice a difference to how you reacted to it? Meaning, the impact from the first one to the second one, was there a difference on how you reacted and handled it? Or would you say because they were so different, it's hard to answer that?
I think it's just hard to answer because I was so young, like 18. Even though when you're 18, you think you like, or I certainly thought I knew everything when I was 18. That I was in a car accident, and I think I was just too young to, and it was such a crazy situation that, yeah, I think the situations were totally different. But I do know, but it's probably because I'm older as well now, that I at least have a, like, I was absolutely screaming my head off lying out there. But as soon as I got into the ambulance, basically, and could tell my leg wasn't like sticking out of my skin, basically, it's I know from all the different modalities I've taken, I know from, like, just from wisdom, I guess, just from being older or whatever, I just know that there's going to be a level where I can manage the pain. There's going to be a part where I can manage the physical part where I have to, like, now trying every single day to try walking because I still can't walk. There's different levels of it, and you just kind of like have the wisdom, I guess, that that you can take one thing at a time and you're going to get through one thing. Where when I was young, I didn't know if I was ever going to get better, and I'm still not better from that accident. From when I was young, I still have a lot of problems from that. So I was right. I wasn't sure if I was going to get better, and I certainly didn't totally heal. But yeah, I think it's just the age difference was such a big difference. So I think that it's just I didn't know what to think when I was younger, and now it's just, even an emergency kind of thing, you're just, old enough that you're like, okay, there's going to be a way to figure all this stuff out. And I have enough healing tricks. This whole entire house is like filled with like little jars and bottles and crystals and like things that I knew that I was going to be able to, like, eventually when I got back home, at least, incorporate all of these things and be able to manage the pain and be able to, like, overcome the break.
Right. And the reason I ask is because when I broke my leg, I was, after I pushed myself to be able to walk through the PT, I was doing fine. And the surgeon, who was super amazing, just said, "Don't fall on your leg." Well, I was in Spain on a vacation and hit a wet metal strip going into a terminal and fell directly on my leg and went
Oh
into
no.
panic mode
Oh
thinking,
no.
"Oh my god," and had a experience where it kind of calmed me down, and I went into healing mode and everything was okay. But then, like, a year or two later, I was in France, fell on my leg again, but this time
Wow.
just kind of brushed it off and was like, "Yeah, it's all right. Don't worry. I'm okay." And so I
Mm,
realized in looking at that, the impacts were different. And I think because the fear level was
mm.
different, and I knew everything would be okay the second time. And so that's what I was kind of
Oh yeah.
curious if you had that same type of experience or not, of going, okay, I'm not as fearful, but yeah, there is a little bit, but I'm not going to react to the fear like I did the first time.
Well, I can already tell that, I guess the answer then is no. I can already tell the mental part of this break is so crazy for me. And the thing is, I feel like I know better, and I feel like I should be stronger mentally than to know how, like, devastating this is mentally. Like, and I see it, and I know it's ridiculous every single day. I'm just like, okay, your bone is not broken anymore. But I touch my foot and it feels like a zillion, lightning bolts are going through my body. And so I go, well, I'm not touching it then. And it's just like, no, that's just a sensitivity thing. There's nothing wrong. You have to keep walking on it. But it's like, it is so hard. So
It is.
So never mind my first accident. I already know there is like a PTSD mental component to this break that I'm never going to get over. Like, hopefully before I die, I'll get over it. But I already know, like what you're saying, when I travel, and I travel a lot too, and I was already thinking about that. Like when I go somewhere and I'm doing something, I'm already, foreseeing that I'm going to be having some really bad link back and forth. And I was I got a couple PTSD books, and I was like asking questions and channeling on it, and trying to find a lot of information on it, because and looking in chats of people who have the same break as me, trying to figure out, does everyone have PTSD on this? Because I feel like I should know better and I should be able to get over it, because I, knew that that was going to be part of it. And I feel like since I know about it and I'm aware of it, I shouldn't have to deal with it. But it is, you know, I'm definitely dealing with it, and so I already can foresee it's going to be a problem in the future, unfortunately. So, yeah, I know what you mean. So maybe I'll be in your situation as well, where the first time I fall in it, thank God my guy didn't, my surgeon didn't say, don't fall on it. He keeps saying, like, you have so much metal in your ankle, you basically are like a robot. So like, don't worry, you're never, he says, if you fall again, you'll probably break your other ankle. You're not going to break this one again. So I'm just going to pretend, even if he didn't say it like that, I'm pretending that's what he said, because that's how I have to keep it in my head, because I know a lot of people are really scared stepping and doing things after a break like this. And I just have to, like, I can't even think about those things, because I can't even walk yet. And I can't even go there really. But yeah, I know in the future, I know that that's what everyone says. And I know it's such a mental thing, challenge that you have to get over. I'm so shocked over this whole thing. I hope something I hope that I can look back at it and then feel like it's okay that I had such a good break, for the winter or whatever, and got a lot of stuff accomplished, because I hope that in the future I'm gonna think that this is like, was meant to happen for some reason and something good came out of it. Because it doesn't feel like that most days.
Right, the silver lining. And I'll just share with you, when I fractured my leg and started the PT, my mind was like, I'm in my 40s. I've walked for all these years. It's no big deal. And that is not at all what happened. It
Yeah.
was like the leg did not want any pressure on it. And it's like, it is a major thing to overcome that. And I'd like to be able to share with everyone and say, oh, this is what I did to overcome the fear. But it actually, I think, just one day just decides, okay, we're going to take the weight this time, and
Really.
we'll take a little bit, and that's not so bad. So we'll take a little bit more, and it'll eventually, may not be 100% back to normal, but you'll be able to move around and function. But
Mhm.
I don't remember ever like a moment where I said, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is it, and then boom, it happened, miracle, ooh ah. I
Mhm.
don't remember it. It just was like one day. It was like, okay, yeah, you're still on crutches a little bit, but you are weight bearing. Your leg is accepting it, so they were like, you're good to go.
Mhm.
And then I had this experience in Hawaii where I kind of broke a rule on a shore excursion where they had said, if you recently had surgery, do not do this. And I
Oh
was
no.
like, what? And I'm like, you didn't tell me this before we got on the water. And this is where the story kind of takes a paranormal, supernatural twist. Is this random gentleman on the boat sitting near me looks over at me, and it's like I must have had this look on my face or something. And he said, Don't worry about it. Stick by my side. I'll watch
Wow.
over you." And I was like, "Okay." So
Wow.
we get in the water, and it's a thing called snuba, where you're doing scuba diving, but you're wearing a snorkel mask. And I get to the bottom of the bay in Maui, and I'm like sifting the soil in my hand underwater and
Wow.
thinking, how cool is this that I'm touching ground that's probably never been touched for
Wow.
however long this bay has been here.
Cool.
And we surface, and I get back on board the ship and have no idea who this gentleman was. I thanked him, but never saw him long enough to get information from him to like
Mm.
send a thank you card or anything. So I don't know if the person was really there or if it was like an angel that came out of nowhere to help
Yeah,
and
for
took,
sure.
physical form for that experience. But yeah, it was
Absolutely.
like amazing. And where I'm going with it is that day when I was on the ship, I was walking to the dining room and my parents looked at me and they go, "Where's your crutches?" And I was not on crutches. I didn't need them anymore after that experience.
Whoa.
So
Wow, crazy.
it is.
Oh, that's a good story.
I'm
Yeah,
not
I for
saying that.
sure feel like he was. I bet he was. But it's weird. My fiance just woke up a couple days ago and he said, "You're never gonna believe what I remembered. Like some weird movie that we watched the night before. The guy in the movie reminded him of something that happened to him when he was young, and so subconsciously he didn't recognize it during the movie, but he had a dream that night about this instance that happened to him a long time ago when he was younger. And it was a story like that where he was sure that this guy who came and talked to him this day was an angel. And he says, "I've never remembered this story, and it was only because we saw that guy last night, but I didn't realize it till the middle of the night when I was having a dream about it, and it reminded me of this guy, and I swear to God it was like it was an angel." So, and his story is very similar to that, nothing to do with all that, but it changed his life. After that day something happened and he was different after that. And that guy, he's not really sure. He was trying to convince himself if that guy was real or not, and he had a full conversation with him in the middle of the day when he was walking to work or whatever. So yeah, so that's interesting that you have like a very similar one. So I definitely
Yeah.
think, especially because you were off the crutches, so even just putting you in a different mindset. So even if he was real, the mindset that he put you in by seemingly reading your mind, right? And then making you be able to do that. And then you're so relaxed and open and like, awake kind of when you're doing such an amazing thing like that. You get up and you're just like on your own little high, like whether it's some kind of brain chemical that's just like, oh my God, I'm in Maui and this is such an amazing thing. So you don't know if it's the guy or the experience, and then you just forget that you even have crutches, and then your body realizes that you just didn't need them anymore anyways. That's a great story.
It is. And we're actually approaching the hour mark.
Ah,
And
yes.
there's a question in the chat room. Do you feel comfortable and have
Of
time to
course.
go on? Or,
Of course.
all
Are you
right,
gonna read it?
well,
I don't know where the chat is. Oh,
Kids
there it
Like
is.
Hell is asking, she wants to know, how do you know you're actually speaking to the subconscious when you're doing the QHHT? I hear a lot about entities pretending to be light beings.
Yep, that is a great question. Not even during the QHHT. The QHHT, I think, would be a little bit more, not, the word is not safer, but a little bit more, you should really be talking to the person's higher self, right? So the person is talking, they're not specifically channeling someone, although there's stories like, is it John Burroughs? There's stories even in the UFO community where people's voice actually changes and it sounds like they're channeling in a trance channel way where the voice, like Ramtha or something, totally completely changes to a different person's voice. But I think that question might have been for channeling instead of QHHT. And in channeling, I 100% hear that question because I have a lot of friends in the paranormal community. like people who have been like, who are parapsychologists who have been doing this for, 50 years or whatever. And after all their research, they are very convinced that there is a lot of negative entities out there, and that's what they say. They always lie. They always lie, and they always say, that they are love and light. And these friends of mine are always trying to tell me, like, you really have to be careful, because if you're channeling, you're opening yourself up to anything. You don't know what's going to come through you. So it's a hard question to answer, and I don't know that I have an answer. I know a lot of people who also channel, and the consensus, I guess, that we all kind of get is that you really have a different feeling when you're doing it. And I would liken this maybe to like a Ouija board. So the general rule or whatever when you're playing with a Ouija board is that you have to be careful. Like that's why it's really dangerous for kids to be doing this, because they don't know how to protect themselves. They are really vulnerable because they're really young. And entities can, like lower level entities, can definitely come through and attach themselves to these kids. So you really have to be careful. But the general rule for a Ouija board anyways is that as soon as and you don't have to have a feeling. You don't even have to say have a feeling in case someone says, well, I just say I don't have a feeling. Just say you don't have a feeling. As soon as the entity starts saying something like telling you what to do or doing something negative, you're supposed to close the session, right? You say goodbye and you put the Ouija board down and you don't touch it again for a couple of days. That's the general rule for that. And for channeling, I type when I channel. So I do my like meditation thing, and then I just sit like in a black room with my hands on the keyboard basically, and I just wait until I start like feeling or hearing things, and I start typing. So my sessions have never, ever, ever, ever been, to this day, knock on wood, I guess, not 100% like filled with light, you could say, or whatever. They're always talking about love and oneness and compassion and helping other people, and like what is happening in this world and like how things work. And it's very high vibe. All the answers are always like very, very, very high vibe. What I would do if I ever had a negative encounter or whatever, if they ever started saying something that was, even if I didn't feel it, but I can feel it. So I think I would know, because I could tell that the vibe wouldn't be right. Because I have a crazy feeling when I start channeling, like a really open, high, I don't even know how to say it, but it's just like a really open, like, I don't know what the word is, but a really positive, swirling, higher energy vibration kind of like feeling. And but I have done entity removals before while I was dowsing. A handful of times I did entity removals, and that is the opposite. So I will not ever do that anymore now, because I did a couple of those, and I was trying to pull entities off people that had negative attachments to them. And as soon as I did it, those entities or energies were in my house. I was doing a couple of times I was doing it on like a Zoom call, like they were in the States or, in a different country. And I was pulling them off, and that entity came into my room and was choking me, strangling me, sitting on my lap, like in my house. It was insanely negative, scary, horrible, like a horrible, horrible experience. And I did it like maybe 3 or 4 times, and I never did it again. And I wouldn't do it for all the money in the world anymore, because I think the difference of that is, think of like you do a channeling session or even a QHHT session. QHHT session, I don't think there could ever be any kind of attachment or anything, because the person is just talking and there's no entity involved in the whole thing. But for channeling, I do a protection. I do a prayer first. I close it properly at the end. I do a gratitude thing. I ask for protection from my guides and guidance, and making sure that, one of them is the gatekeeper, and make sure that I'm safe and don't let any entities that are of less vibration than we are, like into the room or into the channeling. And I smudge first, and I close it properly. I have the bell, I ring it at the end. I do everything that I can to make sure I'm safe. And it's always been safe. the entity removal, on the other hand, I am going and putting myself in a really like precarious and vulnerable position to be thinking, like, in my opinion, I was trained to do this. So I wasn't just doing it for no reason. But I don't know how you could be trained properly, because no one knows what these things can do. And there's a million stories that you could read about where these people are, people are driven to the most crazy places, hospitals and comas, and like entity attachments that won't leave, and horrible things happen. So I would say that, Grant, who I work with, Grant Cameron, is one of the people that really thinks it's all about intention. If you go into, just like Skinwalker Ranch, say, if you go into there and you're like, oh, we're going to do a meditation, a world peace meditation, and see what kind of beings we can see, and they see a portal and they see a UFO, and that's all good. But his perspective is, then there's the special ops guys, special forces guys that go in there, and they all have like big, AK-47s on them, and they're like saying, okay, if there's anything here, we're going to protect you all. And then these people are the ones that have the attachments that go home and have a poltergeist in their house after, and it affects their family and then their friends' families, and anyone who comes into the house. And that these beings jump, and they're, it's called the hitchhiker, and they jump and they go to other people. So his perspective is that they were going in there with a bad intention. They were going in there to kill the beings, or to just like be all with guns or whatever. And I kind of believe that, because when I was going into an entity removal, I was like putting myself in a horrible position. And even though I did all the protection, it didn't work. But I wasn't going in there. Like when I'm channeling, I'm like, oh, angels, all my guides, give me some good information. It's something for myself. It's something that it's like a good meditation and a good information thing. And I've never had anything bad. I've been doing it for 10 years. But the entity removal, I only did it like 5 times, and 4 out of those 5 times I had a horrible thing happen. So I think that if you go into something that's dangerous, be prepared for danger. And if you go into something with high vibes and like with great intentions, and it's almost impossible for it to fail, because you're praying and talking about, angels and protection and gratitude and, high vibes, then you get good stuff. So I don't know. And that's just my opinion, but that's my experience as well. So for 10 years of my experience, I've never had anything happen when I was going for the good channeling, good vibe stuff. And 4 out of 5, so say like 90% of the times I was doing an entity removal, I had a bad thing happen. So I think that, for me, that's my proof that I need now. And you can't be scared of some of these things, because people get attachments from going to like the antique store and buying a, mirror from an antique store or whatever, and you can have a being in your house and an attachment and stuff. So I was afraid of channeling for a couple of years. I stopped doing it completely because my friends scared me that I thought that I was way too naive and opening myself up, and anything could have come into my house. But then I went back to it because I feel so good after. I love the messages. I love just having that meditation time, and I only feel good for days after I do it. So I didn't see the point of stopping, and I still do it, and I have never ever had anything bad happen while I was doing that. So it's a great question, because it's a great question. I hear that question a lot, and I hear other people answer it, and who knows what the real answer is. But I would say, from my experience, do good intention and going in there with protection and knowing that you're trying to do something good, and for for the highest vibe of everyone involved, kind of thing, is I think the thing that works the best.
I'm curious, as a fellow channeler, we always, in my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion and experience, is, I've seen other people channel, I've channeled, and there's always this little nagging voice in the back that's like, hey, if you're only changing the voice, anybody can change a voice. Is this really something else coming in or not? And I had an experience where a friend came up to me while I was channeling after I had finished, and she goes, "Do you know your eyes changed? The
Mm.
color of your eyes and everything changed while you were channeling." And I was like,
Mm.
in my mind, it's like that little voice that goes, "I don't think you're really doing this," got really quiet because it's like,
Uh,
okay, I can alter voice, but I can't alter the
mhm,
eye. Like I could
mhm,
maybe make the hue a different color a little bit, but not the whole like noticeable like that. And so I was like,
mhm.
I'm curious, did you have an experience like that where somebody commented it to you and you were like, okay, I'm definitely doing what I think I'm doing?
Well, no, absolutely. I a handful of times started channeling and doing it into like my phone, like a audio recorder. And for me, because I'm a book publisher, I am so used to having everything in a Word document. So when when I did the channeling through voice, I had to listen to it. I hate hearing my voice like on so much that it was so cringe. I could hardly listen to it. And I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, like mortified, embarrassed hearing my own voice. It did sound a little bit off, but I was just didn't even want to hear it. But I still had to type the whole entire thing because I wanted the message in a document. And so I just thought, I don't know if I want to keep doing the voice because I still have to go do it out of typing. But also, I don't ever do it in front of people ever. Um, because I'm so embarrassed, and because just exactly like you're saying, I think real channelers, the main thing that, and this is what, so even you saying that reminds me that what I do. So I've been doing it for almost 10 years. And I still like 2 or 3 nights ago, I did a channeling session. And what I always think 100% of the time when I'm done, I always do it at night before I go to bed because I'm kind of like, tired already and my brain's more shut off at night than the morning. So I always do it at night. And I did it. And then when I'm done, the first thing I do when I'm like, okay, it's over. So I like, open my eyes and go press the save and then like shut my computer down or whatever. The first thing I think is that was a really shitty session. Nothing. And then what I always think is there was no new information. It was just the regurgitation of, well, it's all love and light. That's what I always think. There's nothing new. It wasn't really good. It wasn't a good one. And the crazy thing is, and I don't know why I can't get over this. I've channeled hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, say 500 times or something. But and so this is still from a couple days ago. I never read my paper, like my document, until maybe a month later, because I'm still convinced the next day when I go, oh yeah, I channeled last night and here's the on my desktop, here's the document. And I look at it and I go, oh yeah. And then I just go, oh, but it was a shit. It was like nothing happened. So I don't read it. And it's not till like a month later, I go, oh my God. I start reading. I go, babe, come here. You have to read this. Holy shit. And it's so funny because I laugh to myself because every single solitary time I do it, when I'm done, I think it didn't work. It's like I didn't get anything. Nothing happened because the feeling that I have when I'm done is I knew everything already. So it's like hard to explain what that means, but it just feels like nothing new, no new information came. It feels like I just finished saying stuff I already knew. But when I read it, it's always new stuff. And I think that that's what that little place is. Like when you're in, like the place where you can actually get the messages, you're in this you could say I would never say the Akashic records, but like you're in this like realm where all the information you do know everything. It's just like a regular, like how I know everything that I know now. Where when you're in a real channeling state, you have access to so much information that I think when I come back and I'm just like saving my document, I go, oh, it was just nothing. Like there was no new information. I remember like everything that I said, I already know that. I already know it. It's like hard to pick the words to say, but I just know that then when I go back, I'm like, oh my God, I don't even remember doing this. And I always say that I don't even remember. It says that I did it because I always put the date on it. I says, I did it last week. I don't even remember doing this. Read this. It's crazy. And that happens every single time. Every single time. I still always feel like I'm not really doing it. It was just a garbage session. And I've never actually had one where it just says all nonsense or it is a garbage session. I've never even had one of those, but I am 100% of the time, that's what I think when I finish. So so I think that like how you just said, like that you right after you think like, oh, I'm not really that good, or I'm not a really channeler. I know what I'm saying. I could change my own voice. Like you're not really sure about your ability. That is, I think, the true like that's the sign where the person is really doing it, because I know that feeling, and I have that feeling still every single time, every single time. So that's funny. So no, I've never had my eye. I've never had anything. I've never done it in front of everyone. I do it when everyone's asleep, and it's just my own little thing. And I like to be surprised when I read it, but I don't want to, people always like, if I do interviews, people always say like, can you channel for us now? And it's like, I don't want to be put on a spot. I'm too embarrassed. I don't want to screw up. I don't want to be worried about saying something wrong, or it's just like I'm too hung up on too many weird things that I would never be able to do it in front of people or whatever. So I've never tried because it's so cringy for me. I can't do stuff like that.
That makes sense, actually. And there's another question, but before we get to that, I'm curious because of my experience channeling. When we get asked questions, and I don't know if this has happened for you, but when people ask us about the afterlife, is there really an afterlife? When I was channeling, it was like my mind goes, yeah, there's an afterlife. But then I had an experience that was like undeniable, that I was like, this is absolute proof there's an afterlife. And I'm curious, with you being a channeler, do you automatically just go to yes, there's an afterlife if people ask you? Or do you go, I don't know?
It's funny because I did do a couple full messages, full like 5-page messages or something about the afterlife, exactly like, because I've read so many things, not from channelers necessarily, but from weird things that I found from ufology or whatever. But but I found so many other things of people saying such weird things about like what the levels are and what they're called. And I've read a ton of really crazy stuff, and my dad had a near death experience, so I've grown up hearing a lot about them, and have forming my own opinions. But and then I channeled on it, so they definitely said that there was definitely one when I was channeling. The crazy thing is now I'm so interested in like the simulation theory, holographic theory, the Tom Campbell's theory about like what kind of reality we're living in. Then I don't question what my message is, but what I question is um, the interpretation of words. When I'm channeling, it's such a it's so like you're really picking words, and and for me, I have to feel each of the words as I'm getting these to explain or like interpret what the like download or like the vibration, however you want to say, however the message comes in. I just say it's a packet of information, and I'm trying to like unravel and translate. So as I'm going through the thing, it's just like I get word, word, word. What is it? This word? No. Is it this word? No. This word? No. Close, close, closer. and I'm like picking words as I go. Or if I'm doing it really fast, I can tell I'm stuck on the keyboard because I'm like, it's not that word, it's not that word. Oh yeah, it's this word. And then I can keep going. So it's like sometimes I think that messages are, they can only give us information that we that is explaining it as closely as humans can interpret such a crazy scenario, like what actually happens to us after we die. So absolutely, I would say there's an afterlife, if I have to just give like a, a 1 second thing. But what I really think is that I think we just received messages that make sense in an explanation to humans that's English. And I think that they're trying hard to make the most, I don't know how to say it, like explainable,
Impactful.
like explanation, but I don't think it's right. I don't think it's directly what happens. I think it's an interpretation of how our minds can fathom what really happens. I think there isn't words and we don't have concepts like what really happens. So it's like the best explanation to such a crazy concept that we don't really understand. We're trying to, the message, they're trying to dumb it down to give us the message, and the concept is dumbed down to like how we used to say, oh, there's a heaven and then there's God standing there and we go and it's all of our relatives. I think that it's not really, that's what I would say, that's what my messages would say. But I think the reality of how it really works is way more complicated than that, more complex than that. And that's just like a good explanation for humanity to hear that makes sense to our brains right now.
Yeah, makes it
I
more
think it's,
understandable and relatable.
yes, but I don't think that that's how simple it is. I don't think it's
Right.
as simple as that. I think it's way crazier than that. And we just don't have we can't conceptually like interpret really or translate what the real meaning of what really actually happens is. I don't think we're, really at that point, but it's very close to that. I think it's close to, there's an afterlife, you die, you go somewhere, whether we're trapped inside the simulation and we are not supposed to go to the light. There's a lot of people that say that, the whole soul trap, the earth is a soul trap kind of thing. So whether we're trying to like exit the matrix kind of thing, exit the illusion, or if we're just trying to, reincarnate and come back, that's like a whole different thing. But I think it is something like you die, you go somewhere, you have a choice if you want to incarnate again, if you want to go somewhere else. That part I think is for sure something, but like how it really works and what the idea is and who those beings are, and if you're supposed to come back and recycle here, or if you're supposed to go to another planet or another plane or another realm or dimension or whatever, who knows. I think it's way, way, way crazier than we think it is, though.
I agree. And Kids Like Hell asks, when you're channeling, does she remember the kind of questions she asks?
Well, definitely when I started channeling, I would do it at night and I would have questions all night and I would be like, oh, like I all night long, I was talking to my higher self. I never knew it was channeling at the beginning. I always thought I was just talking to my higher self because I learned to do this through Dolores Cannon's QHHT. So I was learning to be a practitioner and I was trying to self hypnotize so I could talk to my own higher self. That's the only reason I took the course. And so I was like practicing, practicing, practicing. And what would happen is I would, in the middle of the night be like, finally at that like mental level, like that, alpha or theta state where I was just like down enough and like had shut off my left brain enough that I was just like, ask a question and then get an answer, ask a question, get an answer, ask a question, get an answer. And I would be doing it for hours and hours and hours, almost the whole night. And then I would fall asleep eventually. I would wake up and I'd be like, holy shit, I did it. I was talking to my higher self. I didn't remember one single solitary thing that happened. I did it for months. I never remembered any question at all. And then so it would get to the point where I would be asking a question. And I was like, at one point I was asking like all like different people I used to date and like why they were such assholes or something. I was like, why did this person do this to me? Why did this person do this to me? That's like the kind of questions I was asking, like going through the timeline of my life and asking why every crappy thing ever happened to me or whatever. And I remember that the whole night I just kept saying, just remember this, remember this, remember this. So it's like, remember one question, one question. And then I would fall asleep and I'd wake up and be, oh, I almost remember. It was almost. And it took me months, I'm not joking, months to be able to remember one question. And it wasn't until like the year after. So I did that for, well, at least 6 months after. And I one time I was in Ireland actually. And I was like, I fell asleep and I was in the living room or whatever, the place I was staying in. I fell asleep and I woke up and I was like, something made me say, like, just get a pen and paper. And because you're so in the sleep state, because I was just asleep in the middle of the night and I was going to wake up and go to my room and go back to bed from the living room couch. And something just made me say, like, just get a pen and paper and try and go to sleep while you're holding the pen and paper, and then try and see if you can like get a message, because you're like in and out of sleep because it was like 2 a.m. or whatever. And so I would like try and pretend I was asleep and try and just say, do you have a message for me? And I would go, oh my God. And it would be like, was like one word at a time. It was like this really weird little poem, and it rhymed, which is really weird because you couldn't pay me to be able to just like come up with like a bunch of rhyming like poetry or something. But it was just like I would get one word at a time and I would like open my eyes and write it, close my eyes, and I could never remember the word I wrote the 1 second earlier. And so I was scared it was going to be like, dog park, umbrella, star, like cucumber or something, because I couldn't remember what the last word was. But so I would like kind of like go back to sleep, and then I'd get another word like hello, go back to sleep, like are you, or whatever it was, these really, really short ones. But and then when it was done or whatever, and I was like, really, like I better wake up and go to bed, I would read it and it all made sense. It was like real sentences, really short, like 3 or 4 or 5 words and just like 5 lines or whatever. And I was like, oh my God. So that's what made me start doing it. And when I started doing it, instead of going to sleep and doing it all while I was asleep and not remembering it, I started doing it at night, having a pen and paper by my bed and just kind of like going to bed and then saying, okay, one question. I just have one question, just remembering the question, and then trying to get an answer, and then like open my eyes and write it down and then close my eyes again. And it took, that was at least a year. And it wasn't until I was like, I took like courses about, whatever. So I know how to type really fast. And so it wasn't until one day I thought, why don't I just sit? Because if I could just like be in some kind of trance-like state, close my eyes, but have my hands on the keyboard, then I could just type. I know how to type with my eyes closed. So that's what started making me do that, is I could just like type and type and type, and I never have to open my eyes. I have to spell check a little bit after, but I could just type and type. But it was really hard. It was a long process. But so at the beginning, I never remembered, to answer your question. At the beginning, I never even remembered anything. I didn't remember the questions I was asking. I didn't remember the answers. And then when I progressed, I wouldn't ever even remember the word before I was writing it down. And now when I do it, I actually do it and I have a question. I do it, and I do a lot of work on like missing persons cases. So a lot of times I'll just say like, okay, look at the picture of the person who's missing, and then I'll on my computer, like on my document, I'll put or the person's name, the date that the person went missing, and like the city that they went missing. And I'll have my hands on the typewriter and I'll just go into the meditation and then just like be thinking about the person, the date they went missing and what it was. And then just say, just give me information on this person. Like what happened? Where are they? Like whatever information you want. Or I can just say, the afterlife. I want to know about the afterlife. And then I'll just like go into my meditation with my hands on the computer. And then, so I have an intention of like one question that I want, and then I go to it. Sometimes they don't even answer that question. They just start saying all random stuff that I didn't ask about. They always say that they'll tell me whatever, I'm supposed to know, not what I'm asking. But most of the time they'll, unless it's a question about me, they never answer if I ask questions about myself. But if it's about other things, they'll always give me pretty good answers.
That's very cool. And yeah, I've had similar to that experience of being given riddles if I ask about myself, and
Oh
everybody else
yeah.
would get yes and no's and being like, this isn't fair. But I'm curious when you mentioned like self hypnosis. Is it wise to put yourself in a hypnotic state? Because how do you pull yourself out?
Well, one of the main things that they say about QHHT, at least, that's the only uh, hypnosis course I've taken. One of the main things they say is, or they used to say, I don't know if they do anymore, but they used to say, like, you can never not do this in person. Never. Because, and a lot of people do these kind of things on Zoom or whatever. And the reason, obviously, that you're not supposed to is because what happens if the connection fails? So if you are like hypnotizing someone on the other end and that person is out and like the internet goes out or the connection fails or it stalls or anything, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to wake the person up? They're supposed to have their phone off so it's not ringing, of course, so they don't get waken up out of the state, and so you can't call them to wake them up, so you're never supposed to do it online. So that's like what they kind of say is, you can't ever do that because you can't leave the person hanging, basically. But I've done a lot of QHHT sessions, and in the old days, it really seems like a lot of people didn't remember anything about their session, but I have never had a session, not once, with someone where they didn't say, I remember every single thing. Everyone remembers everything. And I read recently in a book or an article or something that someone was saying that everyone does remember everything now. So no one knows why that is, but I think that it's really hard to get stuck in a state. I think that that's not like an old wives' tale, but I think maybe it was just something they used to say to people a long time ago, like, be careful. If you don't get hypnotized, then you're going to go off into some, thing and you're going to end up in an insane asylum or something. If you, all hypnosis is, even Dolores Cannon's, which is the somnambulistic one, which is a really deep state of trance, you are not in some like la la land. You're just in the same place. That's the same state you are as you fall into dream state. You're not in a different state. So I don't know if new hypnotherapists today would say that and would believe that. I don't believe that, really. So I don't think it would be dangerous. I can't imagine. I've never regressed anyone where they couldn't just wake up like that. You're not forcing the person down. You're just guiding them into an alpha or a theta state, which we go in every time we go to sleep and every time we wake up, every day of our entire lives. You're not in some weird realm. You're just hovering near sleep. So I don't believe that would happen anymore. I don't think it's dangerous. I'm not an expert, so I mean, don't take my word for it, but I hypnotize myself all the time, and it's not like I wake up and I can't remember who I am. Like, I don't know what state you could possibly be in. Like, and I mean, I've done psychedelics, and I don't know, like, I can't imagine what could happen to your state of mind under a hypnosis, because all that is a relaxation and a change in brainwave, and there is no dangerous brainwave that you can go into where you can't get back out of it. So I'm not an expert, so don't trust me if anyone's going to do something weird, but I don't think it's dangerous. And I put myself into that state all the time, and you're just relaxing yourself, right? All you're doing is going close to sleep and then getting out of sleep. You can't, I don't know how you could screw that. Like, I don't know how you could be lost into some place that's a dangerous, like what they used to say. Like, I remember, yeah, anyways. I don't think that, I don't believe that. I think it's just something that they used to say because they didn't understand that state of mind in the old days. Trance-like states where when people were like crazy about weed and crazy about LSD or whatever, they were like, don't do drugs. You're going to get lost in this crazy thing. When I was young, my mom used to say, like, if you get high, you might jump off the roof and break your leg. It's like such a weird thing to say, but that's, like, I think what they used to say to like dissuade people from taking drugs, but now, I don't know, I guess I have a different perspective now that I'm older. I think it's just a state you go, unless you're taking something crazy and chemicals. But if you're taking like weed or you're relaxing yourself or taking something natural thing, it's just like it's a natural state that you go in and out of all the time. I don't I wouldn't worry about any kind of hypnosis, especially if you're doing it on yourself.
And it always finds me interesting when we talk about doing stuff for yourself, how so many modalities are like, don't do this to yourself. Somebody has to do it for you. And I think back to the very first thing that, like, I think it was the ancient Greeks formulated it when they were doing medicine. The first rule was, physician, heal thyself.
Mm.
And it's like, so I look at that and I'm like going, yeah, you have to heal yourself to be able to heal someone else. But
Hmm.
then when we're learning all these things, they're like, no, don't do yourself. And I'm like, wait, then how can I heal thyself if you're telling me I
Yeah.
can't? Wait, what? Wait, this
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Totally. I know for dowsing though, dowsing and channeling are both hard for, and I believe that. So I know exactly what you're saying, but I know for dowsing, like if you the whole point of dowsing is you are getting like energetic muscle twitches based on the quest, just like tarot cards or whatever, but you're getting like a little energetic, like, muscle thing, and it's supposed to be your higher self through your muscle movements. If you're asking like, give me a yes or no on this question or whatever, but I know, same with tarot cards, if you are really attached to an idea, so say a young girl, because I was a young girl once doing dowsing and tarot cards and saying like, does this boy like me? Well, it is going to say, it doesn't matter if it's a tarot card or a pendulum. If you really want the answer to be yes, so you really want the next card to come up to be a yes card, tarot cards or whatever, and same with a pendulum, it will be yes no matter what. And so I think it's really hard to get good answers for yourself if you really are attached to an outcome. If you just say, I have two jobs and they're both offering me, and I have no like attachment, like I have no neither one is makes better sense for me. I don't care which one it is. So should I get job A or job B? You could get a proper answer, whether it's dowsing or whatever. And same with channeling. I think I would get a proper channeled message. But if I have an outcome that I want the outcome to be, dowsing will give you what you want. Tarot cards will give you the answer that you want the answer to be. And I know this only because I did it for years, saying, is this person or is this job or house or whatever it is, and it only does it for what you want. So it is really hard, in my opinion, to do that. And for channeling, if I would ask some of these questions channeling, they would always say, don't worry, it's coming, it's right around the corner, they would say. And sometimes they said that to me for years, and I would say, how big is this bloody corner? Because you have been saying this for years, like, I can't take this, like, what do you even mean? It's just around the corner. And I'd always get so mad, and I would be like the perspective, I think, of channeling and like spirit is so huge that they think that we're crazy by like, not being able to wait a week or a month or a year for something big, right? So they'll say it's just around the corner, it's coming right up, or it's, going to be here before you know it. They always say these weird little things, but it doesn't happen. And I always used to get really frustrated, and I think I just learned to just don't ask those kind of questions, because you're never going to get that. They're never going to say on this date. But if I ask for someone else, they will say this date. But for me, they'll it's coming, don't worry, it's going to be here
Right.
soon.
Right. And we're actually a little over the hour and a half mark.
Oh yeah.
Um, there is Kitzley Hell does have another question, but I'm not sure if it can be answered quick, and I want to
I
be
can answer quick.
respectful of your time.
Oh yeah, I'll answer it quick. No problem.
Okay, she's
Give me the
asking,
minutes.
is heal thyself a way to say check your feelings?
Hmm. Um, I think that that's a tough question, but I definitely think yes. I would say the very short thing, your feelings, the blueprint of everything that has to do with yourself, whether it's your name, your history, the thing. Thank you for asking them. I think that we have like some kind of crazy molecular structure looking aura around us. I've had messages that have said this, and everything on there is your feelings. Everything is your intentions, your feelings, basically, in your desires, right? That's how you create this reality. That's how you bring things towards you, like the law of attraction and that kind of stuff. But I think checking in with your feelings is the most, your feelings start every single illness that you could possibly have too, right? I know that I broke my leg a couple of months ago. I said to myself for 3 months before I fell, I need a break. I need a break, and I need to sit in bed for a month this winter and just watch TV. I can't take work anymore. I was so stressed at work. And I literally was saying almost every single day, I need a break. And then look what happened. So in my opinion, your feelings will make every single thing that happens to you, every single illness, disease, and outcome, and the way that you're living your life right now. It's all based on your feelings. Your feelings are literally the blueprint of every single thing that's going to happen in your life, that has happened in your life, and that will happen in your life, right? I think feelings is, yeah, I won't, yeah. So absolutely, yeah. Your feelings are every single thing that is designing your future, your past, and your present. I think it's all about your feelings.
Wow, and with that answer, I have so many more questions coming to mind. I'm like, we got to bring you back on again because, wow, it's like, yeah, so many floodgates opening. It's like, oh, I wish we had more time.
I love talking about this stuff, and I think it's the same thing when you find like-minded people to bounce ideas off of, and especially when there's someone asking questions too. I mean, it makes, everyone learns from sharing different information and hearing different perspectives, right? I'll remember what you said about your leg being broken and being in France and Italy or whatever you said, because I'm going to remember that, and I think that's exactly how we all like can move a little tiny step further outside of where we were before. Is here you can't do everything yourself if you're not connecting with like-minded people and hearing other people's stories. That's how you're like, oh, that's a great idea, and it gives you like the inspiration and like new ways to look at things. And that's the whole point of this. The whole point of life, I think, is sharing and interacting with other people. So I'm happy to come back, and it was really nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, thank you. And I know the links you had given me and links to your books are in the bio description, but do you want to share real quick how you want people to reach out to you if they have any questions?
I don't know if my email address would be in there. It is in my books. I have 4 books. They're all available on Amazon. And yeah, I don't know if I gave you my information. If anyone wanted to reach out, Mysteria Luna, I guess, is a good place too. That's our YouTube channel. You can leave a message in the comments, or we have a website and there's a contact us box on the website. But I can also give my address. My address is in the front page of my books anyway, so I don't think it's a big secret or anything. But I can give you my address to leave in the description, or everyone could contact me on Mysteria Luna. I guess that's a good one. That's an easy one.
Okay. Well, why don't we have them go to Mystery Luna because then that brings traffic to your website,
Yeah, that would be perfect. Yeah, it's Mysteria Luna.
Mysteria Luna.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and leave a comment if you like the videos, and we can definitely chat on there, or I could give you the website through there or whatever. But there's a contact us on the website too if you want to actually reach out.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you to Kids Like Hell for your awesome questions.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you to everyone who was watching. And for those who are going to watch when they wake up, because I'm sure they're going to want to watch this episode. So we're going to say goodnight to everyone, and we will see about having Desta back on. So keep an eye out and help out with the algorithms. This is a new thing for me. I'm not used to this, but please click the like and subscribe button. It does so much to help the shows. And so thank you, everyone. And with
Thank
that, I'm
you.
going to say good night.
Bye, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.